everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another Color Wednesday video. Today I'm using this new stamp set from Art Impressions called Fairy Spinner. It's really fun because it has both the front and back image of this fairy. It's perfect to create a suspension spinner card. And this video is super long, so I didn't want to cut out any of the important parts of the assembly of the card or the painting of the fairy, so those are included, and because of that the card is kind of lengthy, but I hope you guys enjoy the instruction anyway. I'm stamping the fairy image, or images, because there are two images, in StazOn Jet Black ink onto some Strathmore watercolor paper. I'm going to be doing some watercoloring with Inktense pencils, and because I'm adding water to the paper, I wanted to make sure to use a waterproof ink. I also used Hero Art's Ultra Clean Stamp Cleaner to clean off my stamps because it takes off StazOn ink unlike other stamp cleaners, and it's also safe for both your clean stamps and your clear stamps. I wanted to show you guys this water bucket. This is the Artist Wash Bucket. SimonsSaysStamp.com is now carrying this bucket. I've been using a similar one for quite a few months now and I really love it. It has two containers inside and they come apart if you want to use them separately, or you can have them together or in the bucket, or you could have 3 different sections. It's a really great bucket. I just want to let you guys know that Simon does carry that now. So I'm going to be using Inktense pencils, and I'm only using 6 different colors. As I use each color, I'll go ahead and mention the color name so that you can follow along. And this is actually the 3rd time that I've watercolored this particular image, and I did quite a few different test runs with different colors, and these are the colors that I decided would look best. So the first color I'm using is Madder Brown, and it's actually more of like a reddish, auburnish color. It's a really pretty color, very unusual, and I thought it would look really fun on this kind of kooky looking fairy because she kind of makes me think of like an older lady, and she might, you know, dye her hair a really kind of strange cherry red color. I'm just sure there's someone out there who has a color similar to this naturally, but it's probably very unusual, and I thought it'd be fun to have this color on her hair. So the thing that I learned as I was coloring this image over and over again and reacquainting myself with my Inktense pencils was that you really have to embrace the different look the Inktense pencils can give you. I hadn't used my Inktense pencils for quite a while, probably 6 months or so, and I had forgotten exactly how they work. So basically an Inktense pencil is almost like a dry pen ink that you're putting down on paper, and then as you add water to it, it becomes like a regular ink. So it's really intense. So I guess Inktense is a really good name for these pencils. It's a really intense color. It's also waterproof once it's dry. So it's great for building color on top of each other, although I'm not going to be doing that today. I'm using just kind of the straight colors out of the pencils. But because of that, you don't really have a lot of time to work with the color. And also when you add the color down onto your watercolor paper, even though it kind of sits on top of the watercolor paper, when you add water to it, it doesn't wash away the darkest areas where you applied it. So now I'm moving on to Sicilian Yellow, and that's going to be for her earrings and also later on the star on her wand. Anyway, so as you add the color down to your watercolor paper, you really have to think about where you want it to be the darkest. So on her hair, I wanted those outer edges and then right along those lines to be the darkest, and I kept that top edge of her hair free from color on the pencil so that when I added water, it would be faded up near the top. So like I said, I colored this image multiple times, and I was really searching for a good skin color, and I never really found one that I was perfectly happy with because they were all very orange or all very brown, and I really just wanted more of like a pinky orangey brown color, just a really good flesh tone. And this is the color that was the closest, although I still think it's a little bit too orangey for what I was envisioning for this image. But this color is called Baked Earth. and I wanted it to be very, very pale. I didn't want it to be the strongest brown color that it could be. So I put down very, very lightly little bits on the areas where I wanted it to be the most in shadow. So I just barely let the pencil glide across the paper, letting that watercolor texture kind of pick up the color. Okay, can you guys hear that? That is my cat freaking out downstairs. Manny, where are you? Are you coming in here? Okay, I hope you guys could hear that. That is his freak out meow, and I have been trying to catch that on like an audio recording for ages to share with you guys. Hey, where are you? Okay, so I'm re-wetting her face after I dried it, and then I put some Carmine Pink pencil off to the side, and I'm going to pick a little bit of that pencil up and then bring it over to her cheeks because I really wanted it to be a pale, pale pink, and that Carmine Pink is really intense straight out of the pencil, so I needed to water it down before bringing it over. I'm using neutral gray for all of the gray tones on this image here, and I just did some really, really strong color on a couple of the stripes, and then I'll dry that to make sure that I can move on to those other stripes. And then I applied a really, really light layer of that same color just to get that little stripe there. So after I did her hat, I decided to move on to her dress. And instead of using a regular water brush for this, or watercolor brush, I'm actually going to be using a Wink of Stella clear glitter brush pen. And I discovered that when you color with the Wink of Stella brush pen, the Inktense pencils behave a little bit differently. They don't fade out, or rather they fade out more quickly. So when I painted her dress in just regular water the previous times, there wasn't much shading difference. It was kind of hard to keep those highlights and keep the area really, really light. But as I use this Wink of Stella, it just doesn't pull the color as much. I think it's because the liquid inside, it's slightly more thick, slightly thicker than water, and so it just doesn't pull the color quite as much. So you're really going to see that as I fade it up onto her backside, her rump basically. You're going to see that it really fades out that color quickly, and it's kind of a cool effect. You can get some really, really intense colors right where you apply the pencil, and then it fades out rather quickly to whatever, to white. So I'm going ahead and fading this out even more. And then I'm going to skip ahead to the other side of her, to the back side. So I added more color just right around those edges. And as I add the Wink of Stella, you'll notice that only the edges really stay that intense aquamarine color. The center areas are quite faded, and you'll be able to really, really see this as I shade the rest of the image here. So I'm just adding a little bit of that Wink of Stella around those edges and starting to get it to fade. Did rotate my paper because I discovered it was slightly easier to work with the color at the top and pulling it down instead of trying to fade it up. So I turned that around. Okay, so right here is a really good example of trying to get that color moving. While the color doesn't fade out, or it fades out more quickly than using water, it does give you a little bit of time to kind of swirl your brush around and get that color moving just a little bit before it fades out. And you can really see that in this larger area right here. I'm just going to add more of that Wink of Stella. And I also noticed that I really wanted to add more and more of the liquid. So I did end up squeezing my Wink of Stella brush pen just to get a little more liquid out and moving. I also took that colored pencil, or that Inktense pencil, and added a little bit of color right up at the top because that area up there had already dried, so I knew I wouldn't be able to pull any of that ink down. So I just added that color and really squeezed my Wink of Stella brush to get that shimmer all the way down. And I really love this look, especially on top of this fairy image, because I had planned to put Wink of Stella over the top anyway, and this way there's tons and tons of shimmer. So I'm going back to that gray color, and I'm using that gray on her wings. And I'm using this very, very sparingly because I really want the wings to read white, maybe even a light gray. I don't want them to read black, and they really can go super, super dark, as you can see on her hat. So I'm just adding in some of that Wink of Stella and getting those colors moving. And I also discovered that with the Wink of Stella, if you don't want the colors to keep fading, or you want them to fade even more quickly like I do on this, you can scribble off to the side and get rid of some of the color that's on the brush, and then it makes it a little bit easier to fade out the color instead of having it be really, really dark and intense. You'll be able to see that when I switch over to the other wings as well. So I'm starting out in that little inner area right by her shoulder blades, and I'll kind of swipe the color off to the side to clean off the brush so that as I move up into the other areas of the wing, it doesn't pull that color quite as much. Because it does, this gray can get pretty dark and intense. So I'm just pulling that off to the side and slowly painting in those wings. And the last section is down here right underneath. And I really loved how this turned out. It was more of a sketchy look. I thought it was really, really pretty, and I loved adding all of that shimmer onto her dress and onto her wings. I'm going to give you a close-up shot so you can really see all that shimmer, and it's really quite amazing how much shimmer you can get on this. So look at that. It's so pretty, all that glittery, shimmery goodness. I also used that on the star on her wand and also on her shoes. So after I had finished painting the image, I needed to cut both of them out, and I knew I would be adhering them together, so I'm going to use some Stick-It paper. This is a full adhesive sheet, and it's super, super thin. It's great for die cutting, but today I'm just going to use it as a means to get these two to stick together. So I'm putting that Stick-It on the back of one of the images, and then I'm going to cut it out really, really carefully. And this was probably the most time-intensive part of the whole process. I think it took me quite a while to cut out these images because they're pretty detailed. But after I had them all cut out, all I had to do was put together the whole spinner mechanism. So I peeled off the backing of that Stick-It and exposed the adhesive. And I just had to peel up a little bit that was up there by the wand. Just gonna peel that up. And then I took some light gold embroidery floss, and I'm going to be using this as the string for the suspension. So I'll just cut off a little portion, and then I'm placing it so that it starts to come in on one of her shoes and then goes up to the tip of her hat. And then I'm taking the back image and really carefully putting this on here. And I noticed that because it was watercolor paper, the paper didn't want to stick together. So I thought, you know what, I will run it through my die cutting machine once and it'll make it so that it's completely flat. And it worked great. It flattened everything out and it really adhered those two pieces together. But I didn't anticipate that the string was going to kind of gather up and show through on the back of it. So I guess I had some string gathered or something underneath, and it left little marks. So that was unfortunate, but I mean, not a huge deal. I mean, not enough to make me start over again. So I just went with it, and I set her aside while I did some more die cutting. I die cut a circle in a card base, and this is a 3 1/4 inch circle. I used the Simon Says Stamp Stitched Circles die set for that. And then I also cut another piece out of some white cardstock that I'm going to do some stamping on. So this is a stamp set, or a background stamp for My Favorite Things. This is the striped background. I'm going to be embossing all of these stripes, so I just prepped it with my EK Success Patter Tool and then inked up that entire stamp with Versamark ink and pressed my cardstock down onto the stamp. This is just a little bit easier than having to press the stamp down onto the paper. It's a little easier like this. And then you just put some scratch paper over top and use your fingers to press that paper onto the stamp. I then applied some Rich Pale Gold embossing powder from WOW, and I wanted to get those stripes all nice and golden. I cleaned up some of the embossing powder with a dry brush, And then I took my heat tool and heat set this until everything was melted. And I just love this really look of some bold stripes all in gold embossing. It's really, really pretty. So in order to put the whole spinner card together, I'm taking some of this really, really strong tape adhesive. I think it's from Be Creative. I'm not entirely sure. I'll have links down in the video description and at my blog. But I just cut this really, really sticky paper and put some on the top and bottom of the circle. And then I also took the card base and I put adhesive there as well. This is going to sandwich the string in between two sections of adhesive so that that string really doesn't want to move around. Now I'm going to take that spinner area and put it together. So I'm peeling off the backing on the card base, and then I held the string pretty tight as I pressed it down onto those adhesive strips. And then I took my scissors and just trimmed off the string so that it wasn't hanging off the edge. And I'm going to bring over that other cardstock. But before I do that, I'm going to add adhesive all along the front. I'm getting those corners and around the circle. And then I peeled off those backing sheets and then really, really carefully adhered this down onto the card base. And I wanted to make sure that those circle die cuts matched up. So now the string is all sandwiched in between and the spinning portion of the card is basically done. So as I lift it up, you can see that she starts spinning. I think it's just so super, super fun. So I wanted a frame to go around that circle on the front. So I used that same circle die from Simon Says Stamp, and then I used another die from Sizzix to create a black frame. And I adhered that using some Tombow Mono Multi-Glue. I then stamped the sentiment from the stamp set on some black cardstock and embossed it in that same gold embossing powder, trimmed it down, and then adhered that with some foam tape. And that is going to finish the card. I'm going to show you the card a little bit so you can see the shine of the stamping and the embossing and then also the spinning. I think it's cool is you can spin it like that, put it in the envelope, and then when the recipient opens the card, it starts spinning. So it's really, really fun. I'm going to show you an up-close version of that so you can see. So I've already prepped it by spinning it around, and as I open it, the fairy just spins all around. So thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time. Thank you so much for watching till the very end of the video. It's a really long one today. On screen are 3 more cards that I've done recently that are more than just your average card. The first one is a shaker card that I made last Monday. The second one is kind of like a window with suspended sequins inside plastic. It's also a shaker card, but the sequins don't really move around too much. They're more suspended. And then that last one is a 4-paneled card with window cutouts. So I hope you'll check out some of those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time.